You're watching Collectibles with me, Aaron Lapidus. We're in beautiful Charlevoix, Michigan to meet a very funny, most talented, wonderful artist, Todd Warner. And I gotta tell you, we got a great show in store for you, so stay tuned. Todd, thank you very much for inviting us into your studio.
It's great having you up in the frozen north.
God, I can actually tell we're ready to play with clay, aren't we?
It's one of the hazards of the interviewing clay people.
Could you tell me, what are we going to make out of this lump of clay?
Well, you're just going to have to wait.
Now, Todd, that's not fair.
Doing. Be patient.
So basically, you have a big lump of clay and you just hack most of it off? Is that what we're going to see?
Pretty interesting. I start this way because I'm doing slab construction, and you can try to cut it with a lot of different things, but the knives just get stuck in it. So I use a wire, and it's like a cheese cutter, and it really works great.
And is this any kind of special clay?
It's a high fire stoneware clay that fires at about 2,400 degrees, which makes it revert back to the density of stone. So it's heavy, and if you scratch a knife blade across the bottom of it after it's fired, you'll see metal filings there rather than a scratch in the clay.
Oh, really? Okay. Now this has come a long way since Play-Doh, huh?
Well, it's kind of glorified Play-Doh. It handles the same, but it has quite a lengthy process even after you get the sculpture done, because it has to be dried for about 2 weeks until it's bone dry, and then put into a kiln and preheated very slowly overnight to about 350 degrees, so that the inside is as warm as the outside. And if you fire too fast, the piece will do a nice little camel or giraffe grenade. They actually explode. So you fire very slowly with my stuff because it's very thick. So it's about a 3-day firing process with preheat firing and cool down. And that's nothing to do with the sculpting.
Sounds like there's an art form on top of an art form when you're doing
there's
that.
a lot of technical stuff with that part of it, and it's just something that you repeat and repeat. Or if you don't follow those rules, you've lost your sculpture. But after 40 years, hopefully I've got it right.
Does when you fire it the first time, then you paint it, and then do you fire it again to keep the paint on there?
Depends on if you're using glazes or underglazes, yes. But most of my stuff is fired at that temperature and then fired with what I call room temperature glaze, acrylic paint. And because my stuff is not functional, it's sculptural.
Okay.
You couldn't use it for utilitarian stuff.
Well, actually, you have a life-size piece made. That looks pretty functional for people who can't actually afford a maid.
It works out really good. They usually use pieces like that for entry pieces because it gets people smiling when they come in the door. And I always say that with those pieces that they put at the entry, if your company doesn't smile at that when they come in the door, you probably don't want them for the weekend.
Todd, could you just start me off on how you got your beginnings in the art world?
It started off really early. I was in kindergarten, and my kindergarten teacher, being young and just out of college, picked up on the drawing and all the stuff I was doing back then and pointed it out to my parents so that they could nurture it, and they did. They weren't sure what they got. With having an artist, they weren't prepared for it. They did their very best.
And was it always in clay and sculpture, or was it in more of 2D art?
It was 2D all of my life until grad school. And I took a ceramics class first at grad school, and fell in love with the media that when you touch it, it reacts. And I like to get my ideas down fairly rapidly while I've still got the feeling, and it really fits my temperament.
Do you feel that working in clay is a lot more responsive than, you know, actually painting? Have you ever regretted the direction that you've gone?
No, and actually I'm painting now too, or I started a while back, and so I get to do both, and I've done some pen and inks, but really I think my first love, ever since I touched a piece of clay, was the three-dimensional and the wonderful qualities of clay.
You know, the question that I know you get all the time is the idea of doing animals. Where did that come from?
Well, that's very real. My interest has always been in animals before the art when I was really young, and I've always been around animals. I've always had lots of animals, and my poor mom didn't want to go through my pockets at night when I'd come in, because there'd be turtles, frogs, snakes, fish and worms, and they had to take my stuff out of the shower. The turtles and frogs or whatever I had before anybody could use the shower, so it was always that way from an early age.
Do you have an animal that you like to sculpt the most?
It's kind of whatever I'm working on at the time, but I really like African animals because they're lots of texture, lots of character, and my favorite one to sculpt actually is the warthog because of all the bumps and the neat texture in the skin and the expression.
So you're doing sculpture and you're enjoying every minute of it. How did you realize that's going to actually be your profession and you were going to actually make money doing it?
I was really fortunate. I didn't have to go through the classic starving artist thing. I started selling at the University Gallery early on, and it was well accepted by the public, and it started right then, and it hasn't stopped for 40 years. I'm really blessed.
When you see a lot of artists do their work, they always have somebody that they refer to, somebody that inspired them. Do you have a certain artist that you appreciate the most?
I like a lot of contemporary people, and actually I studied art history quite a bit too, and I think Michelangelo is like the main man because he was well-rounded. It wasn't just art. He was an incredible brain to invent all kinds of mechanical devices, and he wasn't lopsided. He was extremely good in a lot of different areas, and that's always been fascinating to me.
And what about a sculptor, since that's what you mainly do? That's more contemporary.
There are several. I can't think of one right now. It'll come to me though. But I had a lot of people that were in the art business at the same time I was, and one of the guys is Ted Gall. He's an incredible sculptor, and he really it's great for me to be around other creative people, because not to get ideas, but that energy is contagious, and we give it to each other when we're around each other.
You know, Todd, when I look at your sculpture, every piece I want to laugh. So it's obvious that you have a lot of humor and store in you. Do you have a favorite comedian that brings out the best of Todd Warner? Because you are a truly funny man.
I really enjoy comedians, and I love Robin Williams because he's so good just off the cuff. Rodney Dangerfield's one-liners were out of sight. I like I said, I like Robin because he's got that innovative thought thing going, and he can work on a skit with nothing and just really make it pop.
When you started out, did you have any roadblocks, or was it always easy for you to be an artist?
Not creatively, never. I'm really lucky. I don't have the equivalent of writer's block for artists, and I just don't have enough time to do all the ideas that I have.
Is there something out there that you want to do that you haven't?
Always. I really want to do some three-dimensional paintings that involves the animals, and I've started that, but there's always other things to do.
Todd, when you're painting or when you're sculpting, you know, I noticed that your workroom is very, very quiet. Do you prefer that? Do you prefer to listen to nature, or do you normally have the music blaring?
Normally I have music. I love music, and I like everything from classical to occasionally country western and jazz and blues, and got a wide range of tastes. And I do usually have music and going in the studio. Again, one of my great envies in life is anybody that can play an instrument. It just absolutely blows my mind. I'm so envious of it.
So if you weren't an artist in your art form, you would be a musician?
I doubt if I've got it, but I sure appreciate it.
Todd, I'm going to touch on a more deeper subject. You know, what you do is a lot on your hands and stuff like that. And I know you had trouble with your eyes recently. Is it because you're so comfortable in clay that you can handle one of the problems that you had of losing part of your sight? Is that you're just that comfortable?
Yeah, I had it fairly recently, a stroke to my optic nerve that really affected my vision and was devastating at first. But I've tried to keep a positive attitude, and what I'm doing is just really pushing the envelope to a really great extent. And thank God I can still work. I don't know what I would do. I'm a lot slower. There are some things that I can't do, but in general, I'm just thankful that I can still do what I love.
You know, by you saying that, you're an inspiration to a lot of other people who've had, you know, life-threatening medical problems and stopped what they do for a professional. But it looks like you are able to continue with full force and do what you love and make it still look wonderful.
Well, it's what keeps me going, and I think a lot of it is the mental attitude. You could fold your tent, or you could, you know, make the old proverbial lemonade out of lemons. And I think I have an even greater appreciation of being able to do what I do, and I cherish every moment.
When people are starting to be an artist or a sculptor or whatever profession in the art world that they choose to be, any tips that you could give them?
Just do it. A lot of people talk about doing things and they never get around to doing it. And the best thing, if it's burning inside of you, and you have that kind of gift, you pretty much have to do it. And a lot of people are afraid of two things. They have a fear of failure, and sometimes they don't realize that they have a fear of success. What if it really goes good? That's one that most people don't usually think about.